Here's the Stroganoff. Hi there, welcome back to Lorene's Bits and Pieces. How are you today? Well, today we've got a interesting little comparison. I was thinking, what can I do for my video today? And also, what's for dinner? And two things popped out and I was like, which one do I do for the video? And I was like, why not just do both? And so here we are. But the first thing that I'd like to play with you and just bring to your awareness is that sometimes what is quick and easy, or what you think is quick and easy, is no more quick and easy than just a good traditional recipe. Okay? So we're going to dive back into this book here, Tatiana's Table, for just a wee moment. We are going to be looking at the recipe for beef stroganoff, and it is a fairly simple recipe, to be quite honest. I went around the supermarket gathering the items for this recipe, and I remembered that they had these in the supermarket, and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to do just a quick comparison between the recipe that I'm about to do, which has 9 ingredients just on its own, the raw ingredients, and that's it, versus this, which has 7 main ingredients, okay, which is the same, similar to what we have in the book, but additional to that, they also have a bunch. I can't even be bothered counting them, but it's this whole box here is all the ingredients that is in this little packet that, to be quite honest, I really don't think we need. There's some nice stuff in there like paprika. There's a bit of salt, but there's just so many other things in there. There's stuff that really we don't need. And I know this might seem quick and easy, but at the end of the day, the main ingredients are almost the same. So if you want to do a slightly healthier version of beef stroganoff, I encourage you to keep watching. So now we'll have a look at that recipe. So we've got 450 grams of steak, we've got 3/4 cup of plain flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, a teaspoon of pepper, 4 tablespoons of butter, 1 large onion thinly sliced, 225 grams of button mushrooms, 450 grams of fettuccine cooked, drained and buttered, and 225 grams of sour cream. Today I'm actually not going to do this fettuccine because I've got some other carbohydrate that I'd like to bring in. Now, hidden behind my shoulder, just over there, is some pots. And there's the meat, you can see the meat. And the pots in there, one of them has potatoes that I cooked last night, and the other one has carrots and pumpkin. And the pumpkin is actually from last season, where I've chopped it up and popped it into the freezer. And the carrots, we had a big huge bunch of carrots, so I've chopped some of them up. And what we're going to be making is vegetable au gratin. So if you want to just make vegetable au gratin, I'll be doing that in the second portion of this video. And so go to the timestamp here if that's all you wish to do. Otherwise, keep on watching and let's get on to this beef stroganoff to start off with. To begin, we will start by making the seasoned flour. Plain flour, 3/4 cup. 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and mix thoroughly. One large onion, thinly sliced, 225 grams of button mushrooms, I've gotten some sliced ones today, so that should be just fine like that. Makes it stretch a little bit further. And next we have our steak. And I have 750 grams here, so we only need 450 for this recipe, which is roughly half, which will work out just fine because I'll chop it down here and then put these other two in the freezer for another time. The recipe is asking to trim the fat off the steak and then slice into 1 centimeter strips by 5 to 7.5 centimeter strips, or half an inch by 2 to 3 inches. Ooh, I was a bit generous on the cutting off of that fat bit. Let's rescue that bit. That's better. Which is about that chunky end there. That's about the 1 centimeter or the half an inch, by about that long. Okay, so for those of us who can't measure too good, about the length of your finger. We'll call it finger size, finger length pieces. Before we get cooking, we've got to coat the beef strips in the flour, just like we did for the meatball recipe. I'm actually going to save this flour for the moment for the next recipe to come, which because I just don't want to waste flour because I'm already going to be needing it for a white sauce. So I'd rather just use the flour that I've already got here, but for the recipe to come, just use fresh flour if you haven't already got some at the go. The last thing that we need to have at the ready is 4 tablespoons of butter, and that is about 50 grams. So if we have a look very carefully here, you can see that there's markings on here of 100 grams. And I'm sure it will be the same on all blocks of butter. There should be markings on there, okay? Now we want 50 grams, so all we have to do is cut halfway through that marking there straight down, and that'll be about 50 grams of butter. Isn't that handy? Here we go, 50 grams, it's about halfway through, about there. There we go, straight down. And there we go, we've got 50 grams of butter. Boom. And we are going to need to have this in 4s, so we're just going to cut that in half that way. There we go, 4 tablespoons. Easy peasy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fantastic. Now let's get cooking. Next we have, in a large skillet on a medium-high heat, melt 2 tablespoons of butter, add the onion and cook until golden. There's nothing quite like the smell of cooking onions, is there? Oh, cooking onions with a bit of butter. Looking pretty good to me. Now we add 1 more tablespoon of butter and add the mushrooms and cook until the mushrooms are golden. Okay, you can see how the mushrooms have gone quite beautifully golden now. The onion has cooked down beautifully. Turn that heat up just a touch. I turned it down earlier. As we know, I'm cooking with electric, which can be a little bit more tricky. Next we have to put that last knob of butter in there, that last tablespoon. And now we put all of our meat in there. Scrape off that flour. And now I'm going to cover this with my 2 small pot lid, which is just fine for what I've got here. And I'm going to let that cook for 10 to 12 minutes or until the meat is cooked. And after this we'll be putting in some sour cream, so that's where the thick sauce will come from. Okay. Alrighty, that's now cooked through and that's looking lovely. I noticed that there wasn't as much steam coming off of the veggies enough to thicken up that, or to give that flour something to thicken into for a sauce. So I added about 1/4 cup or 1/4 to 1/2 cup, a splosh of water, and that's given us a little bit of a thick sort of roux, a sauce, beginnings of anyway. Now we have to add 225 grams of sour cream, which I've got 300 grams here, so I'm going to add almost this whole pot. It does say to take it off the heat first. So take it off the heat, and now we add the sour cream. That's about right. Don't be too pedantic about these measurements either, because although they are in the book as measurements or quantities, the story behind Tatiana's table, if you recall, is that nothing of hers was ever measured. All the recipe and the quantities came out of Tatiana's head. Oh, that looks good. And the only other reason why I put that little bit of water in there was to help it keep cooking and to stop it from burning. Here we go. There's your beef stroganoff done, and you can see how that would be absolutely great with some pasta or something like that. For us, what we're going to be doing is our next recipe to have alongside of this. All right, here's the stroganoff. There really is something so delicious about the simplicity of that. For me and my taste buds, I don't feel like it needs any other salt, maybe a tiny touch more pepper, but knowing what I'm going to be doing with the vegetable au gratin, I don't think it's necessary. But if you were to have that just with some pasta or rice, then you will need to put, I personally would put just a little bit more pepper with it, and she actually says that in her recipe. Usually a little bit more salt is required. To me, there was plenty of salt in there for my taste buds, but that's what that first taste is all about, figuring out are the seasonings going to work for you. So for me, that's perfect right now. I can quite safely say that this little packet of stroganoff, see you later, no longer required. That recipe is just perfect enough. Now let's get on to the vegetable au gratin. First of all, preheat your oven to 180 degrees Celsius. For vegetable au gratin, basically you need a bunch of veggies that you cooked up last night that you maybe had a little bit of extra of. Maybe you're thinking in advance. These pieces of pumpkin, for example, are pumpkin that I had chopped up and put in the freezer, and you'll see that they're actually quite squishy. So they don't need to be pre-cooked to go into this, but they could be. I'm also adding some uncooked cauliflower, some broccoli, pre-cooked potatoes, a little bit of chili, the leftover mushrooms, and half an onion. With this recipe, it really really truly is about whatever you've got in the cupboard. Could you do this with straight frozen vegetables? Absolutely you could. Sometimes it's nice to pre-cook the onion, but I'm not going to bother today. All these veggies are gonna just go into a casserole dish. We love our chili, so just gonna sprinkle some chili in there. There's no way there would have been chili in my mum's recipe, but there we go. Got some of that potato. That in there. Chuck that pumpkin and that carrot in there. That's looking pretty good to me. We'll give it a jolly good mix up. And just mix until it looks pretty evenly spread throughout the whole dish, all the ingredients. Just like that, easy as. And now we make our white sauce. All right, Lorene's handy hints time. So, white sauce, it's nothing to be afraid of, okay? Now, you remember the flour that we had from earlier. Along with this, we're going to, not all of it, some of that, we're going to be putting 2.5 tablespoons of butter, okay? So that's my tablespoon measure, and I just got some butter and I just squidged it in there, so it's about 2.5 tablespoons. But don't fret about the measurements too much. That's going into a pan, a pot, okay? And we'll let that melt down. Along with that, we're going to take the same quantity, not the weight, but the quantity of flour and mix it in with the butter and heat that through to form something called a roux, which is basically where you take the flour and you cook it. And the other thing is to not have your heat too high. Don't think that you're going to cook a white sauce on a high heat to speed up the process. Don't do that. A white sauce or a cheese sauce, there's only one difference between a white sauce and a cheese sauce, and that is cheese. That is the only difference, okay? So if you can handle making a white sauce, you can make a cheese sauce. And of course, cheese sauces and white sauces are fabulous things, because you can put a white sauce with things like leeks. You can put it on your cauliflowers and your broccoli. You can put it on beans. You can put it on, you can mix a little bit of mustard with it, and then you can have that with things like some of your roast meats and things like that. So there's a lot of variety you can have from just learning how to make a white sauce, and a good white sauce. So the trick is you get the same quantity, not weight measure, but volume of flour to butter. Okay, that's pretty good there. So let's put 2.5 tablespoons now of the seasoned flour in there. Normally when I do this, I'm doing it more off the top of my head, like I just grab a spoonful of this and a spoonful of that, because I'm pretty experienced with making white sauce. But you'll soon know if you haven't got enough butter. We've got plenty of butter here, this is perfect. And because we've already got salt and pepper mixed in with that flour, this is why I saved it, we won't need to add any more salt or pepper to this white sauce. So what we're looking for here is, and the thing is you've got to keep stirring, but what we're looking for here is when it's bubbling, when it gets to like a really white bubble. At the moment it's still quite yellow, but when it gets to the white bubble, we know that we're about ready to add the milk. And you've got to keep stirring it. This is not a time to wander away and look at Facebook or TikTok or whatever you're into. This is a time to be really focused on what the task is at hand. Okay. So this recipe is something that my mum used to cook every now and then, when she just had a bunch of veggies sitting at the, like little bits of this and bits of that sitting at the bottom of the fridge, and she was not sure what could do anything with them, and she might have been sick of making soups or something. So she'd make vegetable au gratin for us, and it was absolutely delicious, and we'd often have it just that on its own. So it's a really cost-effective way of using up all those little bits and bobs in your pantry. I just realized I haven't put the mushrooms in that veggie mix, so I'll get to and do that shortly. But we've had capsicum in there, which I think the Americans call bell pepper. You can see how it's getting kind of fluffy. It's looking a little bit more fluffy. We're getting there, okay? But the thing is, you don't want it to burn. We might even turn that heat up just a smudge. Cooking with electric is a really tricky thing because you don't want to get it too hot. And some things, if you keep the element too cool for too long, it takes ages. You could probably put zucchini in there. You could put just about any vegetable you can think of. You could put in a vegetable au gratin, no problem at all. All those little odds and ends that you think, oh gosh, I can't think of anything to do with these, I'll just chuck them out. No, 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 no. Put them all together. Make a vegetable au gratin, even if you cook up some extra potatoes or extra pumpkin or extra whatever to have as your base, and then you can just chuck all those other little bits and bobs in there. And the root vegetables don't have to be cooked, but it is good for the heavier root vegetables to be cooked first. Okay, you can see how that's gone nice and light and fluffy. It's changed color a little bit. That's what we're looking for. So that's when we know that that flour is pretty much good. To this we're going to be adding approximately, I say approximately because like I said, I usually eyeball this one, 1.5 cups of milk, and you just add a little bit at a time. If you try and add it all at once, it'll go really, really thick and horrible. And this is totally normal. So you mix it in a little bit, bring it together, and now we add a next little bit of milk. And by what I meant before was if we tried to add all that milk at once, it would turn it into a little bit of a lumpy mess as opposed to being a nice smooth white sauce. But it's very hard to get the lumps out. Okay, so you can see how that's nice and thick but not too thick. It's a lovely sauce type consistency. I'm going to turn that off now. Now we're just going to take this sauce and add it to the vegetables. There's those runaway mushrooms. Dump those in there. mix them through. Okay, so we've got our white sauce. Now if you wanted to put cheese with it, you could absolutely put cheese with it and make it a cheese sauce. It's no big deal. I'm just showing you the simplest form, which is still so super, super tasty. Okay, and now we just pour that over there. And that sauce will gently go through all of those vegetables while it's cooking, and we'll cook them and heat them up if they're not already cooked, and it'll be absolutely delicious. On top of this, what we're also going to put is a tiny bit of paprika. Just going to sprinkle a little bit of paprika over the top for a bit of colour, a bit of flavour, a bit of fun. Now we're going to put the lid on that. Cool, it's not touching. And we'll cook that in the oven for about an hour. Today's tea break is brought to us by Natre Herbal Afternoon Tea Mix. And in here we have holy basil, spearmint, lemongrass, gotu kola and ginger. And this is actually hand blended by their naturopath in Adelaide with Australian and imported organic and wild crafted botanicals. So if you're in Australia and you would like to get your hands on this amazing blend, you only need 1 teaspoon per cup, it says, but in saying that, I use it in my teapot. 1 teaspoon in my teapot, which is equivalent of 2 cups or 2 and a bit cups, and it is absolutely delicious. Delicious. So, if you would like to get your mitts on a jar of this deliciousness, please head over to www.natrehealth.com, and I'll put that link in the links in the description below. So yes, this 1 jar is 50 servings. I mean, gosh, that's a lot, isn't it? How cool is that? So yes, I'm gonna go finish my cup of tea now while I'm waiting for the vegetables to cook. Okay, so we're about 45 minutes in. You can see that it's bubbling away beautifully. And what I'm gonna do now is just remove the lid for the last 15 minutes, just to give a chance for the veggies right at the top there to brown up a little bit more. And here we go, our delicious vegetable au gratin straight out of the oven, looking and smelling absolutely amazing. There is one little thing that I did add to this that I didn't catch on camera, and I actually got a little bit of garlic and I chopped it up finely and I just sprinkled that across the top while it had been in the oven for about 5 minutes. And I tell you what, that little bit of garlic just on the top is making it smell absolutely incredible. So I'm just gonna dish a little bit up for myself now, and we shall have a little taste test. And here we go, my friends. We have vegetable au gratin with beef stroganoff. Now, before it falls off my plate, because I've held that at a little bit of a funky angle, let's have a taste test of that vegetable au gratin, hey? It's a nice piece of broccoli, there's a bit of mushroom in there, the white sauce on the top. Just like Mama used to make. Absolutely scrummy. Absolutely yummy scrummy. Oh. And a bit of the mushroom from the stroganoff. Oh, I'm so looking forward to getting into this. So with that topping, you could actually be quite a lot more adventurous. You could mix some breadcrumbs and cheese together, like grated cheese, and you could have put that on the top of the vegetable au gratin. That's really tasty too. And as I said before, you can put any veggies you like in here, absolutely anything. and it will be equally yummy and delicious. So make use of the ends of those veggies, those veggies that you think, oh gosh, I think they might be a bit too dodgy, a little bit too wrinkly or whatever. They're never too wrinkly. Just get to chop them up, put them in like this, put a bit of white sauce over the top, pop them in the oven for an hour, and it will be absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for watching. This was a celebration meal for my 10th episode. Thank you so much for watching. I am having so much fun bringing these recipes to you. Simple, easy recipes. Some of these recipes are ones that I grew up with, that how I learned to cook. And one of my aims with my videos is to have a pathway for people who are maybe moving out and living on their own for the first time, or their mums have done all the cooking, or their grandmas have done all the cooking for them, and they don't know how to cook. And I wish to bring recipes for those people so that they're not overwhelmed with cooking for themselves. And then there'll be other things that I'm going to bring in the future too. At the moment it's cooking, and I'm having way too much fun with that. So keep tuned in for the next few videos. We'll see what else comes forward. And I would love it, love it, love it if you could subscribe, or you could watch another video, or see what inspires you. I hope you have an absolutely brilliant day. Be bold, be brave, be you, my beautiful friend. And I'll see you next time. Bye. And we love our chili.